Is this really who we want to become? A society of phony, clenched asshole avatars, walking on eggshells, always looking over your shoulder about getting ratted out for something that actually has nothing to do with your character or morals?
Bill Maher is probably one of the most recognizable faces in the American entertainment industry. The iconic American comedian and television host has repeatedly crushed woke culture with his sharp and comedic verbal takedowns.
And finally, new rule: liberals need a stand your ground law for cancel culture, so that when the woke mob comes after you for some ridiculous offense, you'll stand your ground. Stop apologizing, because I can't keep up anymore with who's on the shit list. Because cancel culture is real, it's insane, and it's growing exponentially, and it's coming to a neighborhood near you. If you think it's just for celebrities, no.
Here are a few moments where Bill Maher went off on woke culture.
Historically, as you know, because I think you're quite brilliant, that woke is a word used by the Black community to note that we must be aware of social injustices.
But words
and
migrate.
So why is that a bad thing?
It's not a bad thing, and originally that was absolutely a great thing. Alert to injustice, who's not for that? But words do migrate. Now, I'll use any term you want,
okay,
because maybe that is a word that's triggering, and so let's not use that word. I don't know, want to call it the super far left?
Maher was invited to The View, where a host tried to challenge him on his take on the term woke, where he tried his best to clarify it.
We talked about that. I mean, I think we agree about the danger of the super far right, and I can't say it enough. I think they're the bigger threat. But don't tell me that the left hasn't changed. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when it was the conservatives who hated the Jews.
Yeah.
Okay, that was a joke. But,
Bill Maher's statement has become a pain to every woke liberal who refuses to see the insanity in most of their protests and demands.
But it's true. I mean, if I had any doubt that I was right about the change that's happened in the left, watching people protest for a terrorist organization like Hamas, that straightened me up pretty quick.
The idea of free Americans supporting terrorist groups would have been unimaginable just a few decades ago, especially when you really know what's going on with Hamas.
If you're for Hamas, just live in Gaza for a day. And I'm not talking about while the war is on. I mean before the war. Trust me, you would go running and screaming and begging to live in Tel Aviv, a place that has your values.
Bill Maher feels that the reality of liberals protesting for Hamas would baffle even members of the terrorist groups. This is a strong take, but it shows how much Bill feels that American values have changed because of the influence of the woke culture.
I mean, women have this is a show watched by a lot of women. Women have no rights in this place, and a lot of majority Muslim countries around the world. I mean, there is no equal rights as far as speech, dress, opportunities for education, reproductive rights, freedom from sexual violence, freedom from sexual harassment.
The LGBTQ community as well. Yes.
That too.
Bill believes that the woke movement has infiltrated not just Hollywood, but all of society. He believes that mainstream media has fallen victim, and this supposed invasion has found its way even to the Olympics.
We found some of those bad people in the Olympics now, and not a moment too soon. The director of... No, that was sarcasm. The director of the opening ceremony was fired hours before the event because they found out there was a Holocaust joke in a comedy routine he did decades ago.
Maher expressed his frustration, pointing out how people are being punished today for harmless actions they did years ago, something he strongly disagrees with.
Why do we allow the people who just want to bitch to always win? Days before that firing, the opening ceremony's musical director was also forced out because someone dug up an interview with him from 1994 where he admitted to bullying classmates as a child. As a child.
Maher believes the woke movement uses cancel culture to unfairly punish people for actions they took long ago. He argues that despite their talk of empathy and equality, it's clear that the woke crowd doesn't practice what they preach. During an appearance on Piers Morgan's show, where Morgan also expressed his view that the world is going nuts. He asked Maher if he agreed. Here's how Maher responded.
Yes, absolutely, it is going nuts. You know, the problem with the left is that the people in the center who don't even believe what the fringe are believing don't stand up to them. They don't shout them down publicly, so it just becomes, it's very bad for Democrats, which I don't think is a good thing. I mostly vote for Democrats.
By speaking out, Bill is educating the woke people about the basic principles of American democracy, which, in his view, they have abandoned for a long time.
I mean, norms of the law and democracy and answering subpoenas and respecting elections and not trying to have a coup in America. I mean, it went past norms, but their view is, okay, those are terrible norms perhaps to trample, but your norms have to do with like life itself.
Right, biological sex.
Exactly.
I mean, we had that debate tonight, and it's kind of baffling to me that we are actually having to debate these things.
That is what they're saying.
Maher, a lifelong Democrat, felt that his party had become dominated by woke values, leading him to speak out against it, despite it being his preferred party. Bill and Morgan also spoke on the severe attack on free speech, especially the attack against comedians, and Bill was asked how he think about that.
What we comedians are afraid of is not being attacked physically on stage. We're afraid of being attacked on Twitter.
Being cancelled.
Yes, I grew up in the age of the comedy club, and comedy clubs are still out there, by the way, but they were a place, as they say, to be bad, or a place, even if you weren't bad, if you had passed that point, to try out new material.
They think it's just sad that the one place where sensitive issues can be talked about on lighter notes is also being targeted by the woke agenda. They believe that the woke movement is pushing people to become overly cautious and sensitive, to the point where they can't even enjoy a simple joke. And if this mindset continues to spread, it could lead to a controlling and restrictive society, far from the freedom and openness that America and the Western world have always valued.
Before we tackle any of our daunting specific problems here in America, we have to figure out how a country can solve any problem if so many of its people are so intractably, astoundingly, mind-numbingly stupid.
Bill believes that only the minority of society actually support woke culture, while the majority are against it. But only a few are brave enough to speak out against them.
And I'm not saying that as hyperbole or just out of frustration. I mean, this country just might be empirically, verifiably too fucking dumb to continue.
Maher thinks that academia is changing for the worse, where extreme activism is taking priority. In his view, this shift is causing a decline in educational standards, which he worries will negatively impact future generations.
This country simply has no education standards anymore. They will let you out of a public high school and give you a diploma, and you don't have to actually know anything, which used to be the mission of schools, knowing things.
Bill often argues that the woke movement is trying to divide the nation by focusing on racial issues and using parts of American history to spread false and harmful messages. He has been very clear about his concerns on his show, believing this approach is damaging the country's unity.
But history books, that's not supposed to be fan fiction. How we teach our kids history has become a big controversy these days, with liberals accusing conservatives of wanting to whitewash the past, and sometimes that's true, sometimes they do. But plenty of liberals also want to abuse history to control the present.
Bill argues that using history to spread hate along racial lines is a misuse of the past, and he sees the woke activists as experts in doing this.
And last month, a scholar named James Sweet caught hell for calling them out for doing just that. He criticized a phenomenon known as presentism, which means judging everyone in the past by the standards of the present.
Maher believes that woke culture is teaching people to hate themselves for past actions, which he finds unreasonable and damaging to society. He argues that instead of reducing racial tension, it has made it worse. The woke movement focuses on separating people into groups like LGBTQ, Black, Latino, and other minorities, rather than promoting unity and coexistence.
Finally, new rule, liberals need a stand your ground law for cancel culture, So that when the woke mob comes after you for some ridiculous offense, you'll stand your ground. Stop apologizing, because I can't keep up anymore with who's on the shit list.
Bill's message: more people need to be brave enough to stand against this wave of political correctness, without the fear of being canceled. Most people don't agree with it, but very few are bold enough to say how they really feel.
And 62% of Americans say they have opinions they're afraid to share. 80% of Americans, young, old, rich, poor, conservative, liberal, white, minority, all hate the current atmosphere of hypersensitivity. Yeah, everybody hates it, and no one stands up to it.
Bill Maher, along with many other comedians, argues that there's no clear line between jokes and offensive statements anymore, and anything can now be labeled as hate speech, which is violating free speech and limits open expression, which is everyone's right.
Because it's always the safe thing to swallow what you really think and just join the mob. So if someone asks you if Justin Timberlake owes Britney Spears an apology for not being a perfect boyfriend when they were teenagers, just say yes.
On the next clip, you can see how Bill expresses his opinion on the trans movement while on the Joe Rogan podcast. Bill didn't hold back on.
In a fundamental way, trans and gay are almost exact opposites, because gay is all about, I was born this way.
Right.
And trans is, the way I'm born, fuck that.
Bill Maher believes that children are the most vulnerable to woke culture. He argues that gender-affirming care for kids, which supports transitioning, could lead to serious problems in the future.
Some of it is just a TikTok challenge that got out of hand.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but kind of.
Okay.
It's a social contagion.
But even if I was, now this is just me, but I'm allowed my opinion. If I was 100 billion% convinced I was born in the wrong body, I still wouldn't do anything to my body, because medical considerations come first.
Bill Maher is among those who believe that treatments like gender-affirming surgery for young children should not be part of the country's healthcare system.
They have these terms like gender-affirming care, and it sounds so wonderful.
Yeah.
Gender-affirming care.
Like body
sounds
positivity.
Sounds like something hugging you.
Yes, it's Orwellian.
Someone's helping you.
This is what Orwell said: when you control the language,
Yes.
you control the ideas.
Yes.
So it's clear that Bill Maher isn't afraid to get canceled. He expresses his opinions openly on this shows to hopefully gain some more common sense in society. But he knows that more people need to stand up for this without the fear of being canceled. What do you think? Is cancel culture necessary to hold people accountable? Or has it gone too far, limiting free speech and stifling open debate? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more honest conversations about woke culture.